Good evening. This is Priscilla with Scylla Travel. How you doing? How is your Saturday evening? Well, I'm in the South, so it's hot. So for those of you who may be up north, maybe it's a little cooler. But right now here in the Charleston area, it is hot. So, but to God be the glory, we're doing good. We're doing fine, and we're safe. So this week is I'm closing out the Ghana series. We started out talking about visiting Ghana and experiencing Ghana and the various efforts that are going on there in the country and how they're inviting African Americans and other people of the diaspora. Excuse me. I just want to make sure that I am speaking clearly. And I'm looking over here to my Facebook, my phone, to make sure that it's playing on my phone. Just checking, and it is live. And yes, I'm live. So for all of you folks out there who are live, thanks for visiting. And I'm going to thank the replay audience. For those of you who are live, just go ahead and put #live. And those of you who log in later and look at the replay, do hashtag replay so that I know who actually was live and who tuned in for the replay. So today, like I said, we're covering the closeout of Ghana and we're doing our giveaway. And we also have a special guest here. Her name is Miss Theresa Hilliard. She actually wrote the book that I will be giving away today. It's called Mama Duke's Gullah Recipes. My name is Priscilla with Scylla Travel, and I help you live the dream through travel. So I am going to start my presentation, and hopefully I could do this without any snafus. And it looks like I'm doing it. And now I'm going to start the slideshow. So the path, this is the third week in a series. We were doing Visit and Experience Ghana. Like I said, I am Priscilla Holmes, owner and operator of Scylla Travel. And I am a luxury travel agent, and I own a travel agency. Actually, the name now is Travel Advisor because we do more than just book tickets. We actually work with you. I plan your vacation with you. Hopefully it's the vacation of your dreams because, hey, most definitely that money that you sock away for that vacation, that's an investment. So when you make that investment, you want to have a wonderful experience that you'll be talking about with your family and your children and your friends for years to come. What I do is I book luxury vacations in Africa, the Caribbean, Mexico, and in North America. What I do, I customize every aspect of your trip. I also do groups like family reunions, sororities, fraternities, maybe businesses. They want to have a trip with their customer base, any type of group. I also help you manage that. I answer all of the questions for your visitors and your guests so you don't have to do it. And I coordinate everything. I coordinate even the payment arrangements. We take care of all the details so you can relax and you can just focus on the fun. So 3 bullets: visit Ghana, experience Ghana. We're going to recap and close out. Then Ms. Hilliard, author, storyteller, historian, artist extraordinaire, and then the winner of the giveaway. So just to recap, we talked about the first week. We talked about 2019, the year of return to Ghana, where they earmarked 400 years of slavery instituted in the West Africa, from the time of the first African slave. The enslaved person left the Gold Coast and came here to the United States, to Jamestown, Virginia. 400 years. That was the earmark last year. Then we talked about last week, 2020 and 2021 being beyond the return, and Ghana's plan to promote the country, as well as include and entice, invite people of the diaspora. They consider us all Africans because we are Black and We're from the motherland, no matter where we reside, that's where we're from. They consider us the diaspora, and they consider us Africans. So they've invited us to come back, whether you're a United States citizen, whether you're from the Caribbean, whether you're from Canada, whether you're maybe some person from the continent itself who left because maybe their parents or maybe when they were a child, they're inviting you to come back. Okay, we talked about reliving your history through heritage, and I talked about how this passion of mine started because I always wanted to know where I came from. You know, we've been here 400 years, hundreds of years, and we have lost that history of our heritage, where we came from through all the years of slavery and being here in the United States, because our history is not really and has not been taught. Other parts of the history has been taught. We learn about Western civilization. We learn about American history, but most times our history, our contributions to the United States of America has been omitted. Okay, now things are changing. And because of people like Ms. Hilliard and the Charleston Historic Society, they have, started to change, started to incorporate a lot of our history. They're interweaving it into the told history that's already established. So my story, part from Ghana, part from Nigeria, and then another part from Senegambia and Guinea. So we talked about the Renaissance Project. That is a 7-pillar approach over the course of 10 years to promote Ghana. So we talked about experience Ghana, invest in Ghana, pathways to Ghana, and celebrate Ghana. So we talked about those things the last couple of weeks. So now we're just going to briefly go over brand Ghana, give back to Ghana, and improve tourism and heritage assets. So that's what we're talking about briefly, because the meat was really in the previous pillars. So when they talk about branding Ghana, they really want to become a leader in tourism. So Ghana actually has beaches. They've got luxury hotels. They've got resorts. They have people who've relocated back to Ghana from the diaspora, from the United States of America, as well as other places, and reestablished and invested in the country. And they have some pretty beautiful places. And during our 2021 trip, we intend to visit some of those places. They're also, this pillar, give back, is actually talking about community improvement projects or capital improvement projects type things. And then the final thing is improve that tourism, that infrastructure that already exists. They want to enhance their pilgrimage experiences for those people who want to come back from the diaspora, and they want to learn about the history of slavery in the region. That's where it all began. And many of us don't really know much about it. So they've preserved some of those artifacts in those places so that we can learn about it. Now, we're going to move on to our guest speaker. Our guest here, Ms. Theresa Hilliard, and she is a Gullah storyteller. She wrote the book that I'm going to be giving away today. She's also a certified tour guide downtown Charleston. So you can actually buy her book. Those of you who don't win the book, you can go to www.mamadonk.com and purchase the book yourself. And after that, we will be doing the giveaway. And some lucky person, some fortunate person, that person who was most engaged will win the book. So after that, this is just a reminder about our upcoming trips. November, December timeframe of 2021. That's the end of 2021. Hopefully, we'll be able to get this virus thing under control here in the U.S. Everybody else seems to be getting it together except us. But hopefully, we'll be able to get on the other side of the hump and we'll be able to take a trip. So there'll be 2 trips. The first one will be like the History, Heritage, Wildlife, and Safari tour. And then the future may be 2022, will be sort of a repatriation trip. For those of you who are interested in investing in Ghana, for those of you who are interested in maybe establishing dual citizenship, or maybe some of you are interested in actually moving there. So we'll be doing that we'll be offering that in the future. But get on the wait list. That's how you will be kept up to speed on all of the events. You just go up to the top of this Facebook page, and you can either get on my calendar or click on the link in this post. You will see the link to the sign-up sheet. And Aquaba, discover yourself. And now we're going to move on to our guest for today, is Theresa Hilliard. And hello, Theresa. How are you?
Hello. Hello. How are you?
It is wonderful to be here with you and talk about your wonderful cookbook that you wrote.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me on today.
So for those of you who don't know, I used to work for Theresa many years ago. We worked for the Veterans Affairs Hospital, and we worked in the EEO office. And we also, Ms. Hilliard was really, really, really instrumental in the diversity program. So we used to do Black History Month. We did Native American Heritage Month. We did Hispanic American Heritage Month. And we always had food. That was the best part to me.
Yes. Taste all of the native food. You can't have a celebration without food.
Yes. And that is something, a lot of the food that we eat here in the region comes from West Africa. So Theresa actually talks about the Gullah Geechee heritage. So Theresa, you want to just give us a little bit of your background, and then you could just tell us a little bit about what you know and teach about the Gullah Geechee culture.
Well, I was born on Edisto Island, which is one of the 5 islands where the Gullah Geechee people reside. I don't know if I'm getting some feedback. You hear that?
No, I'm not hearing anything.
It must be something on my side. Well, Edisto Island is one of the 5 islands. You know, the Gullah Geechee people reside on James Island, Johns Island, which is the largest island, Wadmalaw Island, Edisto Island, and Young's Island. And those islands separated the Charleston downtown from the island. The only way on and off those islands were by water. And they always say the water brought us and the water will take us back, because we were always surrounded by a lot of water. The Gullah Geechee people came, of course, from West Africa. Ghana is one of the areas, among others. And they were sought after because of their skills and ability in growing that thing that we love so much, rice. And, you know, back in the days when I was young, if someone called you Geechee, that been a fight. You've been a fight then, you know. If they called us Geechee back then, that was Gullah that I was speaking just now. So now we are proud of that. It's we're Gullah Geechee people, and we're proud of that ancestry. Growing up on Edisto Island, that was one of the heart of the Gullah Geechee culture and heritage, because, as you know, it starts in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and ends up in Jacksonville, Florida. So the Gullah people are mainly those in South Carolina, and the Geechee people, they're called that in the Georgia area, Savannah, Georgia area. But they're interchangeable. They're one and the same. It's just, you know, the area where you're from. And, you know, the name, there are many speculations about where the Gullah Geechee comes from, because the majority have come of the Africans came from Angola. Then it's thought that maybe the Gullah comes from Gola, and there was also a Gola tribe. So it's either Angola or the Gola tribe. And the Gizi tribe mainly went to Georgia, so they're called Geechee in that area. But rice that was the white gold. Rice was the main reason that our ancestors came here, because it was a, it was very taxing on your body, but the they knew how to grow it, and they were very successful at it. The Europeans had tried it and it just didn't work for them. So when they discovered that our ancestors had hundreds of years of practice and knowing how to grow and cultivate and and be successful in that, then that's when all this big push to steal us and bring us here to this new land where
Mhm.
we basically became a new people.
Yes.
So
Wow.
yeah,
I
and go ahead.
I actually didn't realize that it went all the way down to Jacksonville, Florida. I thought it stopped in
Yeah.
Georgia. I did not realize that. But
Mm-hmm.
um, so yes, we love rice, and yes, African enslaved people had to farm that rice. I know
Yeah.
it's these plantations and these like historic landmarks that you find in the Low Country. You can find markers to these plantations. They were rice plantations,
Absolutely.
especially on the coast. So the African people were very strong and they were resilient, and they saw them as a resource. And the folks came from West Africa. They were shipped off to various places where they had castles. A lot of those places they left the motherland from were in Ghana. They have preserved those castles, and they have heritage tours, and you can actually view the castles, and you can see where they kept them when they were waiting to be
Mhm.
shipped off. So that's really a lot of people when they go there, it's like, a heart wrenching thing when you go and you see, but it's just a part of our history and our heritage that we just don't know. And it's something that that hasn't been acknowledged. And when we acknowledge that, and it's like you get some type of validation, from the world, like, yes, this actually happened. It was bad. And we feel that. And many times we still feel that here in the United States of America. And now we actually are having a voice. So, right now, the younger generations, they're taking it and they're talking about it, and which is a good thing,
Yeah.
So, and it's not just all African Americans, the younger generation, they're all nationalities of people who are involved in these protests and having these conversations. And it's just something that's good. It's just sort of like cathartic, you know, for us here being in the country and have contributed so much, but yet feeling as though we're second class citizens, or feeling as though we're still not accepted or thought of as equal, in the way that it's written in the Constitution and in the Declaration of Independence. We're all equal. We know that God sees us that way, and our founding fathers of this country, they were Christian. Um, they see each and every person as equal. There's no big I and little you.
I,
So it's
yeah.
good that you have written this book, because I got to admit, until I started working for you all those years ago, I didn't even know where that came from. And like you say, if they called you Geechee, that was an insult, because
Absolutely.
although my family is not from the coast, we're like about 40 miles inland in Walterboro. We had some cousins who spoke Geechee, and they would call them Geechee as if it was something bad, they
Mhm,
and I
mhm.
just wonder, why did they speak like that? But then my grandmother, if I listen to her, I'm like, Grandma, I don't even understand what Grandma's saying. Mommy, could you translate?
Right. That's been what I've had to do for my children is translate. But they were always because I had my grandmother for a long time, well into my 30s. then and the only language that she spoke was Gullah. And because my mother left during the Great Migration of the 1940s, then well, actually, all of my grandmother children, they went to New York, Charleston, and Florida, and the grandchildren was left on Edisto with my grandmother. Now, my mother, fortunate for me, she moved to Charleston, so she wasn't that far away. So when I uh, was able to stay at home alone at 13, then I moved with my mother in Charleston at the very place where Charleston began.
Wow.
It's called Ashleyville, but um, it's right off of Highway 61, runs into the Charlestown Landing. All of that land right there was the land of the Lord proprietors
Yeah.
when they came in to when they sailed into Charleston. They sailed to that area where Charlestown Landing is right now. It was called Albemarle um, um, Hilliard. Sometimes I have these brain farts. But anyway, it they were there for 10 years, right on the bank of the west of the Ashley River. It was called the Kiowa
Right.
River, back then. But then they were right on the Ashley River before they moved to downtown Charleston. That was called Oyster Point at the time, but now it's the Battery. And they moved there so they could move to higher ground where they could defend themselves. Because, prior to the Europeans coming here, the French and the Spanish had already claimed this area. So, you had Indians, you had Spanish, you had French, you had pirates, everybody wanting a piece of this land. But Charleston began right there west of the Ashley, and it's now Charlestown, Ashleyville, Maryville. All of that was a part of the Lord's Proprietor's plantation at at that time. So they're in the process of really doing a book because it was lost. People did not know that that's where Charleston began, right there in the area where Black people live, and it was the very first town, independent town, where you had it was all Black. It was an
Wow.
all Black town, the first all Black town.
Wow. I had
Yeah,
no idea. I had no idea.
yeah, absolutely. So it's and Charleston, 40% of the enslaved people came right here in Charleston. They went to other places, but they landed right here on a place called Sullivan's Island. Sullivan's Island is the Ellis Island for our enslaved people.
I
And
know exactly where Sullivan's is.
yeah,
Yes.
that's where the ships came in, and they were kept in pest houses there for 2 weeks before they were let off of that ship. And when they came in right on East Bay Street after they left Sullivan's Island where they were quarantined. They came downtown on East Bay Street. That was nothing but wharfs back then, water. All the ship would dock right up on East Bay Street, right there where the wharfs were. And
Wow.
the enslaved Africans would come off of that ship and they would be chained in shackles. And some of those chains were made for elephants, to hold elephants. And these were our Black people who were enslaved, walking in a coffle, one behind the other, with chained in shackles, coming down from the wharfs to the customs house on East Bay Street where they were
Yes.
auctioned off and sold to the
Yes.
consider.
That same customs house that's right next to the carnival dock where the carnival
Exactly.
ship is docked.
That was the customs house back then. And on the north side of that customs house, there was a big auction block there. And that's where all of the auctions were held. The enslaved would walk up the step and they would be examined and then sold to the highest bidder. They'd look in the ears, the mouth, just everywhere, and examine them before the sale. And they would be auctioned off and then sold. But then there came a time when um, the city banned those public outdoor sales. And
Right.
it says that we're going to take them indoors. We don't want it out here for everybody to see anymore. Because, other people were visiting the city in
Right.
1800s, and they were going back and writing about it and says, what we saw in Charleston. So then the city passed an ordinance that banned those public outdoor sales, and they took it to the Slave Mart. Have you heard of the old Slave Mart Museum?
Yes. Yes.
Well, those were right in that 4 blocks were 40 auction houses, 40 of them. And those auction houses they were created specifically to bring the enslaved people inside to be auctioned off.
Wow.
And the Old Slave Mart Museum is the only spot that's left of those 40 auction houses.
So the slave mart, is that the market or is
That's
that
no, that's 6 Chalmers Street.
I
Now,
was there. I saw it.
now a lot of people think that the enslaved people were sold at the market. It's called the city market.
Right.
But we called it the slave mart was what it was called, and that's because the enslaved people worked there. They
Okay.
sold fish and vegetables and all of that thing at the slave mart. So they were working there for their um, captor. They would go out there and sell and take the money back to their slave master, so to speak.
Yeah.
So they all work down there, but and sometimes it depends on who their master was, whether they could keep, some of the money. But for the most part, they were there working for them. And people would say, well, I'm going to the slave market to get some vegetables, or I'm going downtown now for get some vegetable for care home now. So that's where they would go. So they call it the slave market. And everybody thinks that the enslaved people were sold there, but that wasn't the place. Now they were sold all over Charleston, so it's very possible that it could have been around there, but that was not the official spot. It's the Old Slave Mart on Chalmers Street.
Yes, I think I visited there. I went on a walking tour not too long ago, and they showed me that. They showed us that, and it was a building where you could go inside,
Yeah,
where they were sold.
absolutely.
Right. Yeah, but it
Right,
was just like on a
right.
street. Other things were on the
Yes,
street. So definitely. So this is like
yeah,
really interesting. Um,
yeah. It's just a story about during that time. It gives you a little glimpse into what was happening during that time once it came inside, and it didn't stop until the war, until the
yes,
end of.
yes. So, as far as your book is concerned and some of the recipes, could you give us like a little background on what inspired you to write that book?
Well, I inherited my aunt's recipe book. My mother and my grandmother didn't write things down, but I started cooking with my grandmother out in the country. I was just a little girl, and of course, she made me a little wooden stool, and I always wanted to be around her while she was cooking. And for the longest, she wouldn't let me come near the wood stove because it was a wood burning stove back then. But she started me out shelling peas and doing little things like that. And then I graduated to doing little fry bread,
Oh
kind
man.
of call them pancake and things like that. Then no, but even a pancake back then, we were called, it was fry bread back then. So and when I would just prepare little things, and then when I moved with my mother in Charleston, and she worked, and she would leave chores for me and to start the dinner and so forth. And then she became ill. She developed a tumor in the brain and could not move her left side. So I became the main cook. So she would sit in the chair and tell me how to cook things. And so I would cook those things for my children. And when my children left, they would always ask, they would call back and say, Mommy, how do you make red rice? Or, how do you make the okra soup? Or how do you make things? And I says, I've got to write this down so you all can have these recipes so that you won't have to call. You can just have them. And I kept saying I was going to do it, was going to do it, and then it came a time that after I retired, I kind of started putting things together for them. And my aunt passed away, and she was the only one that had some. She had her little makeshift book, recipe book with a string tied. Yes. Um, so then I started going through that, and the kids my two girls would says, "Mommy, can you copy some of those recipes out of there?" Then I started copying, and I thought, hmm, let me just put this put this in a scrapbook and give it to them. My recipes, my aunt's recipes, my
Yeah.
grandmother's recipes, everybody, and just put it in a book for them. And it culminated into this to this cookbook. I didn't set out to do this. I set out
Right.
to make a sort of a scrapbook for the children, and then they all just encouraged me as well. I say, well, Mama, you're putting this together. You might as well publish it. And I had no clue how to do that. But then my daughter says, well, you're retired. You don't have nothing to do but research it. There's Create Space. And she gave me a bunch of information. And I was lazy for a while about publishing it. And then one day, um, I started volunteering at the Slave Martin, and people would always talk about food, food, food. And the manager there said, you need a cookbook. And I said, I have one in the making. And he said, well, if you finish it up, we'd certainly like to carry it. So that kind of sparked a little fire under me because I pretty much had a lot of it together. So I just had to figure out how to, um, publish it. But I wanted to, I'm real passionate about the Gullah culture.
Yes.
And I wanted to do my part in sort of preserving it. And I wanted to preserve our history mainly, and all those dishes that I grew up with that people don't really they don't really prepare too much anymore. And my generation is really the last generation that really cooked that kind of food.
Right.
Now, I mean, you go special places that will, that fix those foods.
Exactly. So there are some restaurants downtown
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
serve variations of these recipes, and
That's
people
right.
pay top dollar to eat
Exactly.
those recipes.
That's
So
right. That's
it's
right.
it's important that we keep talking and sharing what our heritage is and our contribution. So that way of cooking many times came out of our ancestors'
Absolutely.
lack, because some of the recipes are heavy in pieces of the pig that people didn't want, or different cuts of meat that you couldn't serve at the master's table, like the
Absolutely.
ears of the pig and the feet of the pig and the fat. Those things that the enslaved people, had to use to cook with.
Exactly. That's
Now,
what it began.
and they are so delicious.
Absolutely. It makes the
And
food delicious. If you put a little bit of that grease in your pot, you will be
uh,
smacking your lips and biting your fingers because that's the thing that it's all about that fat that makes it, that gives it that gullah taste.
yes.
Yeah.
That Gullah taste. Well, I can't eat it every day, but I
No,
certainly love it,
no, you can't eat it
So,
every day. But it's around a celebration.
yes.
Anytime there's a celebration, if there's a celebration in the Black community,
Yes.
there's gonna be some Gullah food.
Definitely.
Celebration, unless you got some Gullah food on the table.
That's right.
Well, we can't eat it every day, but we certainly can eat it when we celebrate. But this book is basically like, sort of an heirloom so that people will not forget. They're
Right.
not going to forget about this because as time go on and people are encouraged to eat better and healthier, it will be lost if someone, if we don't preserve the food and the culture and all of those things that our ancestors made those significant contribution to North America. I mean, it was our people that brought all of that good old okra and red rice and sweet potato poon and
Oh
all of that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
all of
yeah.
those good food. They could, and I know my grandmother made something out of nothing all the time, and where the catch of the day was really what you ate,
Yeah. What
and
you could catch.
that's right. And I mean, you don't have any choice, and you're young, so you don't. It all tastes good
Yeah. And
once
this
you
was
put it together.
yes, this was after slavery.
Absolutely,
So many times the people had to go because my mother used to tell me about my grandfather having to go into the woods and shoot something
that's right.
so they could have something to eat.
Absolutely.
So a lot I've seen a couple of recipes with venison,
Mm-hmm.
deer meat,
Yeah,
opossum,
yeah.
raccoon. Is there in there one for
Look,
raccoon?
look at you to be too proper than you too proper to go possum.
Yeah,
Man, that thing call him possum. You know, possum, eat a possum. Yes, and the coon. We say raccoon, but no, we call them coon. We better eat coon back then.
hey, school me.
Yeah,
I'm a little
I'm telling
gentrified.
you. Oh yes, yes, yes. The raccoon. I tell my grandchildren. I says, sometimes in the summer when they would be visiting, and you hear the trash can at night, and you look through the window, and the raccoons out there feasting off of the food,
Yeah.
and they would hear the noise. And, Mimi, what's that outside? And we peek out the window. And they would like, look at those things. And I says, guess what? Mimi used to eat that. Oh, oh my!
Well, I've tasted it before. I've tasted it before. And my husband, I don't know where he gets them from, but periodically he'll come back with a raccoon to
My
cook.
goodness, I can't believe that. I told him, I says, they're lucky. I says, because if my grandmother was here, they would be in this pot tomorrow.
Yeah, because some of them are pretty fat.
Yes. Oh my
Oh
goodness.
wow. So this is good. Let's see. Facebook user. I think I know who that is. Facebook user. Go back into the post and give StreamYard access to your Facebook profile if you click the link, because I can't see your name. But I see what she's saying. She's saying, let me show you her comment. She's saying Facebook user, but I know who that is. I think I know who that is. Is that Demetrius? She's saying possum, coon, Henry Rice, my son-in-law, the hunter, loves the country life.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so we sort of live, Theresa, I live sort of like in the Jedburgh area on the outskirts of Somerville. Okay, it's like incorporated now, but
Uh-huh.
going a little bit out to the east is Ridgeville and Give Hands, and there's still some country areas out there. And my
Mhm.
family still live in Walterboro, so I still have family that go and shoot stuff and throw it on the grill. But
Wow. My.
oh yeah, so it's good that you wrote this book, and I appreciate you coming on and talking about our heritage, because that's what this whole thing, my focus is on: Africa travel, the diaspora, whether it be the West Indies, the Caribbean, that's what they used to call it, the West Indies, but the Caribbean, whether that be South America, wherever the diaspora, meaning African people who were taken from Africa as slaves, come through the West Indies or the Caribbean and Charleston and gone other places. And they've gone there and lived, and they have contributions, and they have brought and mixed in African traditions in. But, over the hundreds of years, people don't really know where they came from, because we've become a totally different culture and
Absolutely.
separated from the motherland. And so now many of the countries there are inviting people of the diaspora to come back and learn, because that piece is missing. And I would always, growing up, ask, Mommy, what do you mean we're from Africa? that's a huge place. Where in Africa? Where are our people? Who are we related to? And we just didn't know. It just didn't set well with me because we were always learning European history, Western civilization. We learned about Columbus. We learned about all the founding fathers. I'm like, well, mommy, the slaves built all of this stuff. And if it wasn't for my mother, we would not have known much about the contributions of African Americans. But that was like back in the 70s. I was born in the 60s, so I'm a boomer, and I generally don't tell people that, but yeah. And we didn't learn anything much and about our history, but my mom and a bunch of other parents, they took it upon themselves to teach us and learn about different people who contributed to society, American society, like George Washington Carver, Phyllis Wheatley, Sojourner Truth, not just Harriet Tubman. Everybody knows who she is. Not just her, but then there are many other heroes that their story wasn't told, like Hidden Figures. To this day, I can tell you, I didn't know anything about Katherine Johnson until I saw that movie, or those other women. And I'm in the engineering field. I did not know anything about them. The first mathematicians, these African-American women who were mathematicians, they did this by perform calculations by hand. Yeah. They were geniuses to calculate the trajectory of the space program for the Apollos, those space capsules that went to the moon carrying the astronauts, Neil Armstrong, and then there was a Glenn, into space. And no one told about them. And then some became engineers, and they had to fight to go to school. Some became the first computer scientists with the IBM computer. There was another one of those characters, and they had punch cards. And they built that. They got that computer, and they got the instructions, and those calculators, those mathematicians, they got there, and they started that first division. But we never heard about them. But but this was good, Theresa. And I think we've gone a little over time here, but does anybody else have any comments that they want to ask Theresa about the book? Because I'm getting ready to announce the winner of the book. Does anybody else have any other comments or any questions? Let's see. I don't see any, but I'll see you on the replay. If you're coming on the replay, do hashtag replay so I know who you are, and I will thank you for visiting. But now we're moving on to the giveaway portion of the show, and this is Theresa's Mama Dunk's Gullah Recipes, a celebration of Charleston's Gullah Geechee culture and cuisine. And I have a specific page earmarked here that whoever the winner is, and this is because I love seafood. It's like crab cakes. I love crab cakes, and my daughter loves crab cakes. There are just so many scrumptious recipes in this book that, boy, I tell you, let's see. I have someone making a comment. She's talking about, they were talking about the raccoon, and her mom wouldn't eat it. But there are so many recipes in this book that people still eat. There are some people who still eat it, but the younger generation, they just generally don't eat that way, but some do. But I'm going to announce the winner of the giveaway for the person who was most engaged during last week's live when we talked about several of the pillars about Ghana. And the most engaged person is, drum roll, Yolanda Weston.
Oh, wow. Congratulations, Yolanda.
There was, and she attended during the replay. So she blew it out of the water.
Wow.
She was the most engaged. She shared, she commented. She's like one of my biggest fans. She's always sharing and she's always commenting and stuff.
Oh, that's great.
Check out this video. She won the book. So Yolanda, hit me up and give me your address. Text me or, message me your address, your physical address. I might have it. I don't know, but I'll check. But Yolanda Weston won the book. And I'll be sending this book out, Mama Dunk's Gullah Recipes by Miss Theresa Hilliard. She's our special guest today. And you see, I have mine. This is mine over here. I have like okra soup tag on it. Mm-hmm. And that frogmore stew, that's another recipe that comes from Africa. And we eat here. And they throw everything in the pot. But of course, it's called Low Country Boil. No, it's frogmore stew.
Yeah.
And it originated in West Africa.
Yeah.
So, Theresa, do you have any comments before we check out?
Well, this was a great opportunity. I thank you for having me on today. I think that Yolanda is going to really have some good old eating. So, Yolanda, take your weight before and then after you fix all of these great recipes. Of course, now you can sort of modify them a little bit so that you won't get too fat. But I think that this trip to Ghana is definitely something that I would be definitely interested in. And I think that anyone who is really interested in our history and our culture, that this trip would certainly be a great opportunity for you to really, go beyond what we know here in our hometown and find out about where our ancestors came from and go and walk the path of our ancestors and get to know another way of living.
Amen, sister. Definitely. So I'll be on that trip as well. So I'm excited. It's pushed out till the end of 2021. God, I'm praying, please, Lord, get this coronavirus out of here so we can take our trip to Ghana.
Absolutely. And you have it timed, I think, just, I was going to say perfect, but we don't know yet, but because it gives a lot of time,
right?
That's 2021. So hopefully by that time, this virus will be long, long gone. And there are many places in Africa that I would love to visit. And I think that Ghana is a great place to start.
Yes, yes. So actually, that's something I'll have an announcement and more news about it in August. But a group of Black, African American, and Caribbean travel agents we've sort of put together a group, or sort of a coalition, where we're going to be promoting travel and tourism to Africa. So more of that to come. In August, we will be doing the announcement and we'll be starting doing our promotions, because now is the time. We've got a voice now. Everybody's talking about it. So I'm going to be talking while people are listening. Listen here, listen up. More to us than what we've learned here in the U.S. And it's up to us to learn about where we came from, our heritage, and as well as any other opportunities that may exist in the motherland. And Ghana is just the first place that we're going to start. So thank you, Theresa, for joining. This is Priscilla with Scylla Travel signing off. I help you live the dream through travel. And we're going to be focusing on Africa. And have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.